I'm back. Hey, have you ever wondered about the current situation in the music sector and how bad it really is? In this video, I talk about all of the reasons that nobody talks about and why the music business is currently as it is, in particular with equipment. Well, we've all been there, haven't we? We've all been out there to buy some equipment, whether it be new or second hand, and there's a number of problems going on. We've either got some dealer who says they've got it in stock, more of that later. We've either got second hand prices like on Reverb or eBay or, well, you name it, going off through the roof. In fact, in many cases, they're approaching or have gone beyond the full retail price of what the equipment was in the first place. Some of these prices have gone beyond the list price for second-hand equipment. I mean, it doesn't add up, does it? Well, something recent happened to me that sort of jogged my mind to make a video actually about my thoughts based on my own history in technology and that sort of thing. So let's just talk about the item that jogged my mind into thinking that, maybe I should be talking about this sort of stuff. Well, here it is. This is a UAFX pedal called the Ruby. And initially I bought one of the alternative ones from GAK, or Guitar Amp and Keyboard in the UK. Big enough company, no problems with them. Product arrived next day, but it was expensive. More about that in a second. However, they didn't have the Ruby in stock. So I go scanning around looking for Ruby, nice girl, and I found her at Anderton's. You've heard of them. Well, if you don't come from the UK, well, you've probably still heard of them. They have one or two things going on and claim to be the biggest music dealer, all that stuff. Well, Anderton's been around a very long time. In fact, I can remember buying a H&H amplifier from them. Yeah, I really did have one of them many, many moons ago. And I bought it, paid for it on credit, and it was all good. Yeah, so what's wrong with Anderton's? Well, I ordered the Ruby because they had one in stock, and it was about, let me think here, it was about £25 cheaper than the alternate model, the Dream 65. That I'd ordered from GAK. With bated breath, I waited for the Ruby to arrive, and surely it did. But sadly, the Ruby that arrived wasn't the Ruby that I ordered. I ordered a brand new product, and when it arrived, it had clearly been out the box, messed around with, played around with, and then somehow sent out to me, which I just thought was comical. Yeah, you pay new price and you get a sort of second-hand product. There was no mention of that on the website, of course. Well, a lot of people know how I am. If I'm unhappy with something I've bought, I'm going to be calling them and asking what the hell's gone on. Pretty much like I did with with an amplifier not a million years ago. So I call up Anderton's. Hi, how are you doing? Why have you sent me a second-hand product? Oh, yeah. It must be X-Demo. X-Demo? Yeah. They're really hard to get, them are. Really difficult to get. We're having trouble with lots of things. Went the voice at the other end. So I arranged for it to go back. And surely, I went back to GAK, or Guitar Amp and Keyboard, and they had this one in stock. It arrived. It was brand new, exactly as I expected, except that it was about £25 dearer once again. Now you might think, well, what the hell's that got to do with all the music business and all the rest of it? Well, actually, it's got a lot to do with what it's all about the music business, whether it be the dealers, whether it be those ridiculous prices that some of them are charging, whether it be the ridiculous prices for the second-hand gear, whether it be I can't buy one of these When's it coming in? I don't know. That's how the story goes. Try and buy a Mesa Boogie in England. In fact, you can go and try and buy lots of product in England. There is a shortage of products, and dealers don't talk about it. Generally speaking, it's see no evil, speak no evil, and hear no evil. When you're making these sort of videos, you're surrounded by minions. Oops. There's one now. What have you got to say about the particular situation as it is currently? Yeah, back to reality. Now then, there are a lot of viewers out there and a lot of non-viewers out there who don't really know much or anything about me. Well, I've actually been involved in the sort of technology sectors out there since 1981. I was involved in software in 1981. Then I moved into hardware by 1983. By 1985, I was selling, well, IBM after IBM compatible computers. But sometime, I would put it about 1986, I saw some things going on that were really affecting that sector of business. And believe it or not, it's still going on today. Well, what was it? Well, scarily, there was a massive shortage of memory chips back in the day, 1986 or thereabouts. And I remember having piles and piles of computers and no memory chips, and you couldn't give the computers away. In fact, it got very scary that at that time, I think the memory chips went from about $2.50 to about $7.50 at the price I could buy, which made everything so you couldn't really do anything. Yeah. Well, of course, it's all different today, isn't it? That's got nothing to do with this music business problem, has it? Well, actually, it has. It has a lot to do, not with just the music business, but actually with almost any business that uses or sells technology products of any kind in the world today. And if you try and buy a car, that's another story. We'll come to all of that. So let's do a bit of analysis of what, why, where and when. Okay, well, before the idiots come on and start saying, oh, this video's racist, that's what they do, or something like that. Well, it's not racist. It couldn't be further than the truth if someone was to say that, because, well, there are many reasons. I don't want to go into my history, but I can assure you that's not the case. And any reference to China, for example, might relate to the Far East in general, or the Far East in general might relate to China, or I might call it the Big C, or I might call it whatever you want, but it's not referencing really the people. So you go figure about that. Well, back in 1986, there was a massive problem with those memory chips. And I won't go into great depths about that any further, but I did a lot of investigations at the time because my business depended on it. And the conclusions, well, maybe I'll throw them in partway through this video, or maybe I won't. But the fact is, they were eye-opening. They sure were. So what about the situation today? Well, I suppose that a dealer can only sell what he's got, can't he? He can't sell what he hasn't got, unless he sends you a second-hand one like Anderton sent me. Ex-demo, they called it, like a second-hand. Yeah, so there's a shortage of technology products, in particular chips. And in case you don't know this, there are actually two types of chips. There are memory chips and there are logic chips. And the fact is, the memory chips are 10 a penny these days. Well, not quite. I wish they were. But what there is there's these sort of logic chips. And they're found in everything, from cars to stereos to music gear. Well, the truth is, they're found in everything. Now, there have been some funny things going on with these chips. Yeah, in particular, getting them. Now, if you look at Taiwan, and you look at China, you might not know much about them places. Been in the West, probably. But the fact is that, well, Taiwan used to be called Formosa, in case you didn't know. It used to be a different place. Well, the place was the same, the name was different. And of course, in Formosa, they had the original people that had been there a long time. Along came Chiang Kai-shek, some name like that. And he got, in effect, booted out of China. And he left China, grabbed Formosa, and turned it into Taiwan. Well, I can tell you, he did a great job over the years. It was democratized. I'm not really political, but that's what he did. And I remember being there in 1985 and subsequent years and seeing approximately 380 billion trade surplus in Taiwan. Now, you can't understand what 380 billion is, really. Neither can most ordinary people. But I can tell you, it was stonking, rock and roll. So he did a brilliant job of converting Formosa into Taiwan and making Taiwan highly successful in the the commodity markets. They made everything. And there were a couple of companies that have come along making these chips over the years. There's ASML and TSMC, which doesn't mean anything to most people, but a huge amount of chips come from Taiwan. Yeah. And if you look at China, well, a huge amount of chips doesn't come from China. Although they do contribute and they do make chips, they don't make them to the same levels that ASML or TSMC actually make them. Incredible technology levels do those companies get involved with. But we'll come back to China and Taiwan a little bit later, I think. Let's move on a little bit to more about the problem. Now, you will know, I'm sure you'll know, all about the coronavirus from 2020 onwards. Maybe January, February, it started affecting you or not. Well, it certainly started affecting me sometime around that time. But in reality, the chips and the rest of it, all going on in the background, were actually getting short. So if you looked sometime around October, November 19, many of the companies out there, the big ones, like the car companies, people like that, cancelled the chips that they were advance ordering and didn't need them. They sort of slowed down because they knew what was coming. But once they got back to January, February, they wanted the chips again, so they reordered. But unfortunately by then, these other companies, these manufacturers had flipped off to other things, making other types of chips for other people. And then you started the sort of ball rolling over and over through those times, 2020, 2021. And here we are in June 2022, and we still have no thing in sight regarding the solving of chips so that, well, we can actually buy what we want to buy. It's crazy. Now, I don't know what you know about chips, and I'm not talking with fish. The chips, when you look at them, and close up that is, you've got to be close, they talk in nanometers, or how small the thing is. And they can make some with nanometers that are higher, and some with nanometers that are very, very small. There's a point below, or should I say above, 110 nanometers or thereabouts, where those are called trailing edge chips. Trailing edge technology. Well, you've heard of leading edge technology, haven't you? Surely. Well, the leading edge technology actually is most of the chips that are below 110 nanometers or further. And they can come right down these days, I think, to 7 or 6 or even 5 or something ridiculous as that. So tiny that you could never comprehend it. But these trailing edge chips there are lots of problems with them. And part of the problem with them is that they don't make much money. It's what it says, the leading edge is the leading edge. They make masses of money in them. But the trailing edge chips, they sort of tail off in the profit stakes quite rapidly. And what you end up with is chips that barely make any money. So nobody wants to make trailing edge chips. It makes sense, doesn't it? The only problem is there's such a massive backlog for most of that stuff. And indeed, even some of the others, the leading edge chips, that everybody's suffering, and they can't just stop doing something in these factories and start doing something else as you'd like them to do. But let's go a bit further about the China thing. We touched on it a bit earlier. If you've ever noticed in the news, the thing that comes on your TV and sometimes is correct and sometimes isn't correct, you'll notice that China has always said, Taiwan, that belongs to us. And Chiang Kai-shek, when he first left China and went to Formosa that became Taiwan, he always said, I'm going back to China and I'm going to take my land back. Well, needless to say, Chiang Kai-shek never did go back and take the mainland. It's a bit of a crazy idea when there's probably 10 times the people in China that there is in or was in Taiwan. But on the other hand, China has continued to, depends how you look at it, but I'd use the word harass Taiwan and keep saying, that's our land, we're going to take it back. And they've been a bit argumentative by flying planes over Taiwan in their airspace and having the ships go up the Taiwan Strait or in the Taiwanese water space, so to speak, the rest of it. So it's antagonistic, to say the very least. And I think that maybe there could be some moves at some stage where Taiwan will be taken back, so to speak, although it would never belong to China, I don't think, in the first place. It could be taken back, and what will happen is there'll be major problems. Well, how's that going to affect the music business? Well, it's all coming. Hold on. Taiwan isn't an idiot. And TSMC, one of the companies in Taiwan that makes these leading edge, and I think they make the trailing edge stuff as well, but it doesn't really matter. But TSMC have been watching what goes on. This is just my own view, by the way. And what they've done is they've gone off to America and said to the Americans, hey, let us make a chip company or a manufacturing plant in America. And America said, a great idea. Yeah, we might be short of chips at some stage. Come and join us. And they have. They are now making a factory in the USA. And that factory's in Arizona. But I do believe they are making also a factory in Japan and a place called something like Kaohsiung. I'm not good at talking about Chinese names or names in other parts of the world, so you'll have to put up with that. That's just life. But at least they're going out and they're making these factories. But those factories, I do believe, are working on the likes of 28 to 22 nanometer chips. Will it help overall? Well, I'm sure it'll help, but there's a lot of aggro. And of course, if China were to come along to Taiwan and say it's mine, well, TSMC would still be in business around the world, and that would be an important aspect. At that time, you would not be able to comprehend how bad that would be for the technology businesses around the world, including most of the things in your life and mine. Let's not worry about the dealers. They probably wouldn't exist. Okay, well, I'm not going to harp on any more about the factories and all the rest of it. But what's it done to us, me and you, the guys who want to go out and buy a ruby pedal that I've actually put over there now, out of the way? Well, what it does, first of all, it creates a massive shortage in most sectors. And believe me, the music business, the music retailing business, is no exception whatsoever. None. They suffer in the same way that the car people do. And if you've never been and bought a car recently, oh my God. Well, I'm going to take you through a quick story because this whole video is all about really the sort of problems that are out there. Let's talk about Audi. Now you're going to say, what's this got to do with the music business, the music supply and all the rest? Well, it's got everything to do with it because it's exactly the same thing. Well, what do you mean, Tony? Well, I went along to my friendly Audi dealers and I wanted to buy an Audi GT RS e-tron, which is a particular model. And I wanted to get rid of my Taycan because, well, it never really was that good. And the e-tron GT had one or two advances in it, although the underlying technology was still of the Taycan, but better. So I go to the dealer, and unbelievably, they had one in stock, one of these e-trons. So basically, I do the deal. I won't bore you with any of that, but I do the deal, and I already know quite a lot about the chip shortages and that sort of thing, what's going on in different sectors. I said, how's the chip problem affecting you then? Don't talk to me about chips, he said. That's his first comment. So I said, well, what do you mean? And he started explaining. Well, we're a major Audi dealership. At any given time, he said, we've got 150 cars on this site, brand new, for sale. I said, wow, I didn't realise you'd got that many. He says, well, that's in the normal situation. He says, but right now, and this was about, by the way, February 2022. He says, we've got less. I said, well, how many you got? He says, 22. And he wasn't laughing at the time. So I looked around the sort of showroom, and you know what? He'd got 22 new ones, and all the rest of the showroom and outside, covering a half a square mile or so, was filled up with second-hand cars. And you wonder why your cars have gone up in value. Well, let's equate that to the music business, because it's all the same thing. Some people will tell you it's all old news, that is. Everybody knows it's a chip shortage, but it's not just a chip shortage that's really the cause of the problems that are going on, is it? And like I said, if you look at the Audi dealership where he'd got no products and the new cars were in ultra scarcity, think Ruby. Well, that was just one example. There's hundreds. Well, then you come back to looking at the second-hand prices of product. The second-hand prices, whether it be on Reverb, eBay, the local flea mags, you know what I mean. Anywhere where you can go and buy second-hand music equipment, guitars, amps, you name it. The prices have gone through the roof. And everybody thought, well, they're just going up. Scarily, they're not just going up. You're seeing these massive shortages, just the same as the car people. In the music business, the hardware side of things, whether it be amps, I could start naming them, but I'm not going to. Whether it be amps, whether it be guitars, whether it be pedals, you name it, whatever it is, they've all got these shortages, these massive shortages. And of course, a lot of people talk about, it's the tubes. The Russians have stopped making them, or we can't buy them because of the Russian this or the Russian that. Well, that is true. However, it's a long story. I don't believe that products like tubes from a particular country are decimating business. in the music sector for hardware, like they try and blame. There are multitudes of problems. It's not any one thing. It's just becomes endless though. How many of you guys these days are working from home? You know, oh, I'm going to work from home. I don't want to come into the office, or I don't want to come to work anymore. I don't want to this, I don't want to. Well, the problem with that is that you're finding that all business becomes very disjointed and effectively short of people to actually do the work. Now, I know it's going on big time in the UK, and I do know it goes on in America pretty much. Well, I don't know whether it's similar, but it's along the same lines. We'll describe it like that. And you know what? I dare say that in most sectors of business involved in music or anything else, that I'm working from home mode is detracting big time, along with the no chip supply, the no hardware coming in from Eastern sources, and it nearly all comes in from Eastern sources, even products like fractal audio that have the boards made in the Far East. I don't know what they're doing about shortages, but I'll bet you they'll jack the price up. Most people will, yeah, but scarily, so will some of the dealers. And as we mentioned dealers, you're back to this thing about, well, send him that one, we've only got this one left. They might have only had a few in stock. Could have had lots of them, but somehow, I don't know. I wouldn't be convinced about that if somebody told me that. So it's a bit of a rolling road that isn't going to get fixed this side of 2024, they say. From the chip side of things, to the people side of things, to everything else. And by the way, the people that work from home, well, I think you might find that's okay when it's nice and warm in the summer. But you wait until winter when you're in the UK and your electric bill and gas bill go way past £2,000 or £3,000. Yeah, I bet your boss won't pay that. It won't be on for you back at work then, will it? So the reality is that this problem is not going to go away tomorrow. Oh, you think the equipment isn't going to continue up in price when it's second hand? It is. Yes, it is. But there's one thing that will stop it. And that's called a recession. Oh my God. Now let me just run through why a recession's a bit of a problem to happen right now, here in 2022, June that is, and onwards. Well, it's a problem because, first of all the music dealers, if you will, we'll call it music dealers, but it could be any dealer, they all have shortages of product from these other problems that I've already discussed. So what happens in a recession? Well, let me tell you, people like me and people like you stop spending money. And the reason you stop spending money is it's an uncertainty aspect. You don't know whether you're coming or going. You don't know whether your business will be there in a year. You don't know whether your job will be there in 6 months or anything else. Yeah, so when you get in a recession and the dealer hasn't got much to sell in the first place, well, what will happen is the dealer won't be making the money that he wants to make or needs to make to cover all his overheads and all the rest. And if you want to talk of manufacturers that are also dependent on those Far Eastern chips, well, you know what will happen with them as well, don't you? Yeah, it will become very, very difficult for them to actually make any money, and they'll, one way or another, try to jack prices. But I think ultimately, unless something changes that is unforeseeable regarding things like recessions, things like ultra high interest rates, things like the price of petrol and diesel, or gas, as they say in the States, that's currently going on, plus the fact of the shortage of the chips and the rest of it, well, yeah, it's a bit of a grim future. Of course, there are some positive things to that, and when everything slows down to a drip, no, not me. When everything slows down dramatically from recession, maybe the chips will have time to catch up. Now, they do say it will take till after 2024 before you see any signs of the problem with the chips going away. And the recession might come and go, it might not actually arrive or whatever, but you can see that it's a very difficult time. But if you want to make some money on your old gear, I'd say to you is, probably now's the right time to sell it, or wait a bit longer, and it'll probably go up even higher. I know that I keep getting offers for my car, believe it or not, already. That the car second-hand value is doing this and this and this. And if you think that music gear is any different, well, you're on the wrong planet, I think. Based on what I've seen over the years and based on what I see today, it's a very similar sort of situation where the supply side dries up and then in comes all the other problems, and you can't just get out of it. Well, this is the internet. This is a video about the sort of problems going on at the moment. I could actually talk a lot about all of the things that I'm familiar with since 1981 and those things that have gone on and are going on even today with things like the technology side of things. I'm not going to do that because this is the internet and there's some right dodgy characters in the internet. So I'm going to conclude what I've covered right now. Well, what would I like you to do? I'd like you to, if you want, watch the whole video. You have to watch the whole video, else you don't get it, quote. And whether you agree with me or you disagree with me, well, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. I've probably had more practice than you. Probably. I mean, look at me. You don't end up looking this bad by having a good life. Yeah, so whatever your view, why don't you bang it down in the comments? But if you're rude, by the way, or obscene in some way with your comments, they'll just be deleted. They'll never get there. And then you'll be banned. And I really don't care. You should be subscribing if you like the sort of thing I'm talking about. Or you should be looking at the reviews that I've created about various products since 2009 on YouTube and going way back further into the 80s and before on my website www.tonymackenzie.com. So you should be subscribe, ring that bell, press the little all button, and I'll probably send you a couple of links a month, maybe 4 or 5, but won't be any more than that. So I'm not one of these that's actually selling anything. If I demo something, it's just literally a demo. You either like it or you don't. But I'll be always showing you things that none of these other people will ever do. They're only interested in selling your products, and they always put the bright side of everything on everything, don't they? Well, I don't do that. What I do is tell you, well, what I believe is the truth of a product. I'm an ordinary type of guy like you. And if you want something that's pretty genuine, come and watch the videos. Come on, bring it on. So, all them comments down below, don't be rude, don't be aggressive, don't be nasty, because it'll all be taken off if you do. And I'd love to hear the views of viewers regarding the current problems with no supply, the ridiculous way that prices are going up and up and up on even second-hand equipment and cars and anything else. That looks like it's sitting on my shoulder, but the reality is it isn't. Or is it? Yeah, so until next time, I wanted to create this video. I don't really want to give you everything about my personal details, except to say that I've had a lot of practice, and some of the comments inside this video are my personal comments, generated from, well, since 1981 being involved in technology and the Far East. Till next time, get out of here.